Robert Kearns is on a bus heading somewhere far away. He looks disheveled and tired. Shortly after, the police order the bus driver to stop for a security check. When they enter, they go straight to Robert's seat.
Robert Kearns?
Sir, your family's very concerned about you.
They speak to him quickly and politely, but Robert seems confused and lost in thought. They soon take him off the bus, and the story flashes back 3 years earlier, showing Robert's life before this moment. The scene shifts to Detroit, where we see Robert at a church gathering. Here, he is well-dressed and socializing with friends.
You talking about basketball?
Kearns. You probably mean that.
He is an engineering professor, happily married to a beautiful woman named Phyllis. They have 6 children. After the ceremony, they get into their car to drive home. It is raining. As Robert drives his Ford Galaxy, the steady movement of the windshield wipers irritates his troubled vision.
Look at this. I turn this thing off.
He realizes that he has to keep turning the wipers on and off. When they're on, the windshield stays clean, but the wipers drag noisily across the dry glass. When they're off, raindrops quickly cover the windshield, making it hard to see. At this moment, I thought about how often a small or unnoticed annoyances can inspire great inventions. By the way, a similar story happened with the invention of a household mop. If you know what movie I'm talking about, let me know in the comments.
All right.
At home, Robert stares into the bathroom mirror, carefully watching how his eyes blink automatically, effortlessly and usefully. Phyllis comes in, inviting him to bed, but he kisses her and excuses himself, saying he has something important to do.
I'm gonna be right back.
Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
He goes straight to his garage and starts examining the car's hood, studying how the windshield wipers work. He does calculations and stays up all night trying to make sense of his idea. He is inspired to create a wiper blade that works like the human eye, one that blinks every few seconds instead of moving continuously. The next morning, Phyllis takes care of the children, making breakfast and getting them ready for school. Robert, however, slept late and now has to rush to work. He loves his children, but he is already obsessed with his wiper idea.
All right. Don't use your wipers today.
What?
At work, he teaches his usual class. We see that he is a smart man who admires inventors. Engineering has always fascinated him, and he encourages his students to create something new in their lives instead of just working for others. Later, during a break, he talks to his colleague, Jerry. Robert explains that after his experiment the night before, he realized he can create a time gap between wipes mechanically, but he might be able to do it electronically.
Mistake. Can't do it mechanically. You might be able to do it electronically.
Jerry isn't very interested and doesn't ask more questions. Robert doesn't care. At home, while working in his workshop with his sons, Robert suddenly notices that his blueprint for the first automatic wiper is making sense. It could actually work.
Here we go. We got Team Kearns here.
And each one should work on a wiper motor. Where are the meter cords?
He is thrilled. He knows this invention could make him rich. And not only is it useful, but they live in Detroit, the automobile capital of the USA, home to major car companies like Ford, Chrysler, Jeep, GM, and Dodge. And of course, he celebrates.
Wow. It's so great.
At dinner, they toast to their success. Robert already imagines his family as a big corporation, with the board, his family, sitting around the table. His dream is a typical example of how people genuinely believe in family success. With financial help from Gil Previck, a car dealership owner, Robert turns his basement into a lab and builds a prototype. He tests it in a fish tank before installing it in his car.
Why? Well, because it obviously rains at different intensity levels. Yeah.
After demonstrating it, Robert sees that people are amazed by his invention. However, they worry about his lack of business experience. He's just a professor. But Gil assures them there's nothing to worry about. When they ask what Robert calls his invention, they don't seem to like the name.
What are you going to call it?
The Kearns blinking eye wiper.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure about the name.
The next day, Robert and Phyllis go on a fancy double date with Gil and his wife. Gil is much richer than the Kearns. Robert looks around the restaurant while Phyllis tells the story of Robert's accident on their wedding night in 1953. A champagne cork hit his eye, leaving him almost blind in one eye. Robert explains how terrifying it was.
And I look down and pow, cork goes off right in my eye.
Later, the men and women separate to talk privately. The men discuss business. Gil mentions that the big car companies have been trying to develop an intermittent wiper for years.
More than anything, now we know there's a demand for it. Until now, your wipers seem like a clever gadget.
Robert knows this is huge. 20 million cars are made in America each year, and everyone could use his wiper. Gil supports Robert's dream of manufacturing the wipers himself. He encourages Robert to show Ford his invention, and they agree to set up a meeting.
We're not going to let anybody take it apart, especially after the money we put into patents. We'll just give them a peek.
The next day, Robert visits Gil's workplace. To his shock, Gil gifts him a brand new car, telling him to install his wiper invention in it and take it to Ford for the demonstration.
No more aquariums, Bob. Just throw the unit in here and take it to Ford.
Soon, Robert patents his invention and demonstrates it for Ford's researchers, who had failed to create something similar. His wiper perfectly adjusts speed and timing.
All right, Bob, let's see what you got.
All right.
Hey, Bob.
But when the engineers ask to see how it works, Robert refuses. He won't explain until he gets a good deal. Ford tests the wiper under extreme conditions, and it passes. They realize Robert has solved the problem, but won't share his secret.
Bob giving us a little look under the hood.
Oh, sorry, Frank. We can't do that.
At home, Robert gathers his family for a celebration dinner. The kids are happy, and Phyllis is proud, though she warns him to be careful. Before eating, Robert prays, thanking God, and even asks for heavy rain so he can test his updated blinking eye wiper in real conditions.
Some rain so that we can test the blinking eye in real-life conditions.
Soon, his prayer is answered. It rains heavily. The family runs outside and the kids jump in the back while Phyllis sits in the front. Robert proudly shows off his invention to other drivers who are confused as his wipers work automatically. Only his family knows how much their lives are about to change. At Ford, the engineers tell executive Macklin Tyler that Robert's invention works perfectly even under high heat.
He wants to manufacture it himself?
Apparently, that's his dream, yeah.
Impressed, Macklin meets with Robert and asks for a business plan. Robert wants to manufacture the wipers himself, but Macklin isn't fully on board. Still, they make a deal, and Ford requests a sample unit for approval.
Let's get started on the legal right away, right,
Absolutely.
gentlemen?
Thank you. Thank you.
Robert rents a huge warehouse for his factory and orders parts from Motorola. He sends Ford the sample and pricing details, then waits for their response. Months pass. No calls, no replies. One afternoon, Gil waits for Robert at a restaurant. When Robert arrives, he seems distracted, but Gil is serious. He tells Robert that Ford has canceled the deal.
They're just not interested anymore.
What do you mean? Well, who did you talk to?
Tyler?
Macklin?
Yeah.
Robert can't believe everything has ended this way. He thinks maybe they could still negotiate, but Gil suggests trying other car companies instead of Ford.
They have the unit.
We'll get it back.
When?
I don't know.
Disappointed, Robert goes to his workshop with broken spirits. He knows his workers depended on the Ford deal that no longer exists. One rainy night after work, he rushes to his car and drops his keys. When he bends down to pick them up, he notices a Ford car using his blinking eye windshield wiper, working automatically without manual control. Yeah, just an ordinary guy against one of the world's biggest companies, which uses its power to freely take someone else's ideas without consequence. Unfortunately, that's pretty common in our world. Frustrated, Robert follows the Ford cars to a dealer convention where the new Mustang is being unveiled, featuring his intermittent wiper as a selling point.
And the brand new electronic intermittent windshield wiper, let's give it a hand!
Realizing Ford stole his invention without credit or payment, he spots Macklin in the crowd. When he tries to approach, security guards stop him and remove him from the event. The next day, Robert wants to sue Ford, but Previck prefers negotiating a settlement. These events deeply affect Robert, even hurting his teaching performance at the university.
A lot of these formulas work in opposition with one another, so that...
Frequency?
Yeah. Did I call on you?
Anxious, Robert keeps calling Gil for updates but can't reach him. Desperate, he shows up uninvited at Gil's house.
Hi, Bob. What's going on?
Is Gil here?
Gil's wife isn't happy about Robert visiting during their party, but lets them talk. Gil explains he did $17 million business last year, mostly with Ford. He won't risk angering them over the wiper patent, which he claims belonged to him since he funded it. Feeling betrayed, Robert returns home and tells Phyllis everything. He's determined to sue Ford anyway. That night, they try writing legal accusations themselves without a lawyer. The next day, Phyllis sees a doctor for stress-related health issues. In the hallway, Gil's wife warns her that suing Ford would be self-destructive.
Oh, for God's sake, Phyllis, it's Ford. He can't win.
That night, not thinking clearly, Robert trespasses in the rain. He deliberately breaks into a car to remove its windshield wiper mechanism. When the owner confronts him, Robert runs away despite knowing it's illegal. At home, he dries off, cold, confused, and angry. Soon after, he boards a bus to Washington, D.C. seeking legal help, where we first saw him in the movie. Police remove him when he claims the president invited him, taking him to a safe place. 2 months later, Robert is in a mental hospital being treated for a nervous breakdown.
Chair or couch today?
Your choice.
His therapist asks if he still wants to sue Ford, an impossible fight against a billion-dollar company. His answer is clear and loud. When I watched the scene, I remembered how often people have to confront an indifferent system where one person's truth means almost nothing. I think many people can relate to this.
I can't answer that.
Do you want to continue fighting this?
When doctors believe he's better, Robert returns home determined to rebuild his life. His family welcomes him warmly, and he continues taking medication to stay stable. But in the following weeks, he remains quietly depressed. The medicine numbs him. He's not the same enthusiastic husband and father. His son Dennis notices and sits him down for a talk.
Can I talk to you for a second?
I'm in trouble.
I know you're mad at me. It's because I embarrassed you. If I don't do something, I'm afraid I'm going to start feeling like I did before, and I can't handle that.
Robert explains how he has a lawyer and is suing Ford professionally this time. He asks Dennis to take care of the family while he's occupied. Frustrated, Dennis leaves the conversation.
Is that all you have to say?
Yeah.
Soon, Robert and Phyllis meet their new lawyer, Gregory, who warns that suing Ford is serious, but promises to fight for justice. They plan to sue all car companies using Robert's patents.
Ford is just the first. We're going to be bringing suits against every automobile company.
Encouraged by Gregory, they feel hopeful. Gregory suggests getting Gil's help, but Robert isn't sure. Later, Robert meets Gil, who calls the wiper just a blinking eye windshield wiper.
Maybe I'm out of options.
Robert promises he's handling things professionally now. Gil asks why Robert isn't suing him too. Robert says after 25 years of friendship, he won't.
Yeah. You sued everybody else. What's wrong with me?
Nothing.
Gil suggests they might get a quick settlement and Robert could regain his patents. But he refuses to testify against Ford. Soon after, Gil mails Robert documents giving him full patent ownership. At dinner with Gregory, they celebrate news that Ford offered a $250,000 settlement.
That Ford has offered to settle for $250,000.
Phyllis is happy, but Robert is upset. Ford won't admit he invented the wiper. He refuses the offer. Gregory warns court will be expensive, suggesting they take the money.
That's wonderful. I think we'd like to think about it.
Sure, of course.
Maybe. But you're getting money for this case.
Only if we settle.
Robert insists on no settlement unless Ford admits stealing his invention. Gregory explains Ford could bury them in paperwork for years. Here, I especially liked how he turned down money in the pursuit of justice. It's rare to find people willing to go all the way just to have their truth heard.
Well, I'll make it simple, too. Forget the check.
Robert says he has all the time needed. Phyllis argues they don't. Their children are growing up. At home, she pleads with him to accept the offer for their family's sake. But Robert remains determined to prove justice, insisting he's never let them down before.
We're gonna be fine.
The next day, Robert takes time to think it over, but he is sure these huge corporations are victimizing many people, not just him. This only makes him more determined to fight them in court and become a source of hope for other victims. Soon after one night, Phyllis sends her kids to a family member. Robert finds the house empty and Phyllis standing in the kitchen. She looks uneasy and has something difficult to say. She tells him she's leaving until he finishes his dream of justice. After that, the kids and she will return. But for now, she doesn't want to put the kids through such a tough time.
Please understand, this is overwhelming.
God damn it, I need you right now!
He asks her if she still loves him and she says yes. It's all temporary, she says. They hug and he makes promises. Then she leaves him. 4 years later, Robert is living alone doing his daily chores before heading out in the morning. Unexpectedly, he goes to Dennis's school and waits for him. Dennis is confused to see his dad, and it's clear they haven't kept in touch since Robert chose to continue his court case against Ford, instead of taking the money and living happily with them. Despite everything, they go grab a coffee. Over coffee, Robert tells Dennis he is finally hopeful about presenting his case in court. Ford has been delaying everything, trying to run out the clock so his patents will expire. Robert says he doesn't want to wait any longer.
If we can get them to court soon, they lose a very big advantage.
How soon?
However, Dennis seems uninterested. He says, "Good for you, Dad." After hearing too much legal talk, Dennis, tired and frustrated, excuses himself. He's upset that his dad keeps prioritizing the case over the family. Back at home, Robert sees the legendary Charlie DeFoe, the boss of Macklin, waiting in his driveway. Charlie is personally here to offer Robert a lot of money in addition to covering all his legal expenses. Robert isn't impressed. He simply asks what the condition is for accepting the money. He wants to know if they will admit to stealing his invention and try to deny him his day in court. But Charlie says there will be no such admission, just a plain $1 million offer.
Ford is genuinely sorry if you've ever felt mistreated.
Charlie even suggests Robert should move on and turn his life around after all these years. He gives Robert his card and says to call if he changes his mind. But Robert is clearly not interested.
Doesn't matter. Just call me. I'll be waiting for your call, Bob, okay?
Later, Dennis drops off his little sister at Robert's house. He doesn't even get out of the car to say hello, just drops her off and drives away. Robert tries to act like it doesn't bother him, but it does. He calls out to Dennis.
I know you've carried a pretty big load for the family, Dennis. It's okay, Dad.
Robert just wants to talk. We see that Dennis feels a bit guilty. The teenage girl loves her dad and offers to help him with some work. But he says they can do something fun today, since she always types documents for him during her visits. At night, Robert is working late on his court case when Dennis suddenly shows up with coffee. He wants to spend time with his dad and help with the paperwork. Days later, the trial arrives. Robert appears in court against Ford, representing himself since Gregory is no longer his attorney. His son Dennis is with him. The Ford lawyers give them a belittling look as if to say, "You're going to lose." The judge is even surprised that Robert would take such a risky move by representing himself against a giant corporation. But he goes ahead and sets the next court date. At home, all Robert's kids gather around. He talks with him. Somehow, the years they spent apart are being made up for as they help him with papers and documents. He casually asks how Phyllis is doing. His youngest daughter tells him it's been 4 years. Phyllis is probably seeing someone else. He doesn't hate her, he just wishes she could be there, facing this challenge with him. He still needs her. Late that night, the family stays up helping their father install a modified wiper on a car. They get tired and fall asleep on the couch scattered around. This shows how much they believe in their father and support his fight now that they are older. The next day is the trial, so that night, Robert takes time to call Phyllis. He tells her that her presence would mean a lot, but of course, Phyllis doesn't want to come.
Okay. Goodbye.
The next day, Robert sees Ford's executive Macklin and they lock eyes. But to his relief, his children show up to support him, making it clear he isn't alone. Robert smiles. As the trial begins, he makes sure the judge knows that his son Dennis is here to represent him as well.
Kearns, simply because he is representing himself. Yes, Dr. Kearns.
Robert is new to court in legal terms, which leads to some funny moments. But it's also admirable how one man dares to stand up against such powerful parties. Robert talks more than necessary, but the judge tells him it's okay, just relax and follow the steps. Soon, a demonstration of the invention and Ford's argument about ownership is shown exclusively to the jurors. Robert knows his work well. He knows how it began and how it was modified over the years. He asks smart questions to the defendants so they'll slip up and reveal the truth. Finally, Executive Macklin takes the witness stand. He's asked if he ever told Robert that he won the wiper competition Ford held years ago. Macklin just smiles and says, "That doesn't sound like me." He claims he doesn't remember saying such a thing. He also says Ford never agreed to let Robert manufacture the wipers because Ford would never trust an inexperienced supplier.
That would have been a disaster waiting to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler.
The judge allows Robert to ask more questions. Robert asks if Macklin ever told him to come up with a cost per unit for the wiper. Macklin denies it and says, I don't know.
I don't recall specifically everything I asked him. I may have asked.
Robert presses again. Wouldn't asking for a cost unit suggest a manufacturing agreement, at least in common sense? Macklin denies that Ford ever considered using Robert to manufacture the wipers. The next witness is a professor. He argues that the blinking eye windshield wiper isn't much of an invention. He says it was just a minor modification of existing tools under the hood. Yes, work was done, but according to him, Robert doesn't deserve a patent. To respond, Robert quickly writes a note and gives it to his child, who runs out and soon returns with a book by Charles Dickens. That makes sense. Creativity isn't always about making something entirely new. Sometimes it's just a fresh combination of familiar elements. A great analogy, don't you think?
Please, if I could just continue.
How long will it take to get to the point, Doctor?
Not very long at all.
The defendants object, but the judge overrules them. Robert explains. All the words and letters in the book existed before Charles Dickens wrote it. Every word is in the dictionary. But does that mean Dickens didn't create something new? Of course not. Robert uses this to show that making new patterns from existing tools is still an invention and deserves recognition.
Well, I admit I haven't thought about it in that way.
After this, the judge calls for a break. Robert steps outside with Dennis. His daughter and other kids are there too, but what truly surprises him is seeing Phyllis standing with him.
Thank you for coming.
Go.
After the break, Robert takes the witness stand himself. He acts as both the lawyer and the witness. He explains that this wiper isn't his first invention. He made other things before. Then he describes how the idea came to him. One day, after returning from church with his family, he noticed that the wiper wasn't very useful in the rain. It was almost blinding if it wasn't manually adjusted. Then he thought, why can't a wiper work like an eyelid? Why can't it blink? This explanation helps the jurors and the judge understand that Robert truly is the inventor. He knows what he's talking about. He didn't come all this way for nothing. Ford wronged him, and now he's finally being heard. That night, the family is gathered at home except Phyllis, who is officially separated from Robert. Suddenly, the door knocks, and when Dennis opens it, it's once again Charlie DeFoe. Once again, he is here to offer Robert money to drop the case in court and take the lots of money being offered for settlement. $30 million. Oh, how they don't want to lose. But if I was offered that amount, I would think twice. But Robert has already spent 12 years of his life, and there's no point in backing out. What would you do?
Now look at these guys. Can you imagine what that would mean for their future?
The money is a lot, however. $30 million settlement, but with no admission of wrongdoing. But this time, Robert is mature enough to not take matters into his own hands only. He tells Charlie, without admission, he will not allow it. But this is the life of his kids too, so he will let them decide if they want to take the money. However, this time, his grown-up children are mature enough to not be bought by money rather than truth.
I don't know, Dad. It's a shitload of money.
Don't do it, Dad.
Humiliated and defied, Charlie DeFoe leaves the house, along with leaving the family alone for the rest of this court case. The next trial is all about the final argument and sentencing, and the tension in the air is hot. Robert goes to the witness chair, and this time, questions are asked by Mr. Finley, the defense. He begins by questioning how come Robert, out of nowhere, possibly misheard, convinced himself he won Ford's wiper competition. He then adds how maybe Robert has an undiagnosed medical problem that sets him off every once in a while. He recalls a time 4 years ago in Maryland when Robert was on a bus and was removed by the police. Robert says yes, he remembers it, but he sure doesn't want the topic mentioned.
No, it was not. Do you recall being removed from a bus in Maryland by police?
At the time, he told the officers he is going to Washington, D.C. since he is summoned by the vice president of the White House.
It was at the request of the White House. Do you remember that, Mr. Kearns?
This is not completely true and sure does make Robert seem ill in the courthouse, just like Finley wanted to. Finley continues and questions Robert once again if it's true that he was then taken to a Rockville mental facility and subsequently treated for a nervous breakdown. He emphasizes that this happened because he was mentally unstable. Robert defends himself by saying he was seeking medical treatment at the time, but his answers are shadowed by the point Finley made. Discouraged and embarrassed, Robert and the rest of the people go for a break. When they return, Finley once again tries to convince the jurors that claiming ownership when one necessarily didn't invent anything new isn't a thing, and that Robert is mentally boozed, he said.
He sometimes confuses reality with fiction.
When the time for sentencing comes, Robert is tense and anxious. He is somehow scared he will lose his well-aged invested dream to receive public acknowledgement for his accomplishment. When it's Robert's turn to convince the jurors of his case, he is somehow quiet and intense, with so much in his head to be said. But he starts off telling them how Mr. Finley mentions all the things he didn't invent, rather than most things he did invent and with patent ownership. He says it's because Finley can't. He emphasizes that Ford Motor Company used its fame and money and name and influence and power just so they could take advantage of the situation, and what they did is darn wrong. After much heartfelt speech by Robert, he tells them to use their great intuition, good heart, and feeling to see an inventor, a contributor to the society, someone that has been denied justice for a very long time, and make the right decision.
They want you to believe that, because that is what they believe.
Finally, the jury reaches a verdict, and we see a man reading the verdict.
We find that the Ford Motor Company did infringe on...
The courtroom bursts with happiness as the jury determines that Ford infringed his patents, but that the infringement was not deliberate. However, due to this infringement, the jury awards him $10,100,000.
Infringements, we award the plaintiff $10,100,000.
The family embraces Robert and congratulates him on owning his lifetime fought work. Gil also is in the courtroom and congratulates him.
Hell, you earned it. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you, Gil. While he is smiling and accepting happy comments, he spots Phyllis walking out. He runs towards her and tells her it has finally stopped. And so, what is next in their lives?
You finally got everything you wanted. You deserve it.
It has been 12 years in the process of Ford's betrayal, Gregory's bailing out, crush-outs, and their separation that night in the kitchen. Time has passed indeed, and Phyllis's answer to get back together is a high-key no.
I don't know if I can go through this again.
While they are about to say goodbyes, they are interrupted by a bunch of fans, perhaps car companies, that come and gift him with a champagne to celebrate his ownership and acknowledgement. Now, with him being occupied, Phyllis has to go and he has to let her. She walks away out of his life while he stays in inventor corners. A very tough scene. Personally, I would never trade my wife or family for a fight against a corporation. But to give him credit, Robert went all the way practically alone and achieved success. That's truly inspiring. Next, we see Father Robert with all his children dining in the same old diner. He is proud of what he has got them secured and how he somehow succeeded in life. The closing credits indicate that Robert later wins an $18.7 million judgment from Chrysler Corporation as well. And with that, the movie ends while Robert continues to go on with millions in his pocket.